Star Wars Republic Commando is a tactical first-person shooter released in 2005 on PC and the original Xbox. Though it never reached the recognition of Battlefront 2, which also came out in 2005, Republic Commando is known as a cult classic, with those who played it having fond memories from its release 15 years ago. But does it hold up today? Republic Commando takes place between episodes 2 and 3, an era that at the time was mostly covered exclusively by video games until a little show called The Clone Wars came along. The story follows a few missions during the Clone Wars ranging from day 1 all the way into year 2, close to the events of Revenge of the Sith. We play as RC-1138, aka Delta 38, aka Boss. Get ready, because there are a lot more nicknames. 38 is the leader of Delta Squad, an elite unit of clone commandos consisting of RC-1262, aka Delta 62, aka Scorch, the demolitions expert with the jocular sense of humor that every elite team of killers needs.
You hear that, Sev? Someone thinks I'm excellent.
Well, at least that makes 2 of you.
RC-1140, aka Delta 40, aka Fixer, the hacking expert with the stern, by-the-book personality that every elite team of killers needs.
Sev, how many kills you got today, Psycho?
What, Scotty?
Keep this comm clear, you two. Calm down, Fixer. Just having a little fun.
And of course, who could forget RC-1207, aka Delta 07, aka Sev, the sniping/killing expert with the thirst for blood and mild racism that every elite team of killers needs. Republic Commando is a familiar gameplay experience to fans of tactical shooters like classic Rainbow Six and Ghost Recon, an influence this game doesn't try to hide. Don't think for a second that I didn't catch that. I see what you did there. I bet you think you're clever, huh? There's a somewhat limited selection of weapons, but the adaptable DC-17 rifle filling the role of primary, sniper, and grenade launcher all at once is really cool. The shooting mechanics feel a bit archaic though, especially compared to today, and the mouse sensitivity issues I ran into on the PC version didn't help.
Oh man, sensitivity is going to be a nightmare in this game. Yeah, the mouse sensitivity, you see how my mouse is moving there, everyone? My mouse sensitivity is at 3.
Thankfully, the game makes up for it with its squad-based gameplay. Delta Squad can be given commands as a group, such as focusing fire on a hard-to-kill enemy or regrouping or covering a specific area, as well as individually, like setting up a sniper position, hacking a terminal, or setting explosives. And even though each member of Delta is characterized by a specialty, all squad members are capable of the same actions, and as far as I could tell, they're equally effective. For example, I was pleased to see that even if Fixer got incapacitated, I could command Sev to continue his hack, and Scorch could give us sniper cover while I revived Fixer. Having the whole squad equally capable really helps the player adapt, and can make sequences feel a little more dynamic and interesting. And the sequences that put the whole squad together in rooms with a lot of potential squad commands were easily the best part of the game. Thankfully, this was also the majority of the experience, though it did triple my time at the back to stations, which happened quite often.
You're good. Get out of the way.
Get yourself
Next.
some Vector, Commando.
Retreating back to... I feel better
You're good.
now.
Get out of the way.
Stop
Next.
limping around and get some Vector, soldier.
Yes, sir. Rule 39.
All right, get out of the way.
Never say no to back.
My turn.
Let's form up.
Get out of the...
Secure that position.
Go there.
Yes, sir.
When 38 was without his squad, though, well, there's nothing keeping the game from feeling like a dated shooter with a Star Wars paint job and some enemies that took way too much ammo to kill. These parts weren't outright bad, just much less interesting and fun than when the squad was involved. And of course, it was more frustrating.
38. I think Delta Squad has been eliminated.
As far as the AI of the squad, it's a bit of a mixed bag. Like I said before, each member of Delta performs equally at tasks given. Unfortunately, commands seem to be given out based on proximity and availability.
That's Fixer's job.
So if 38 goes down and all of Delta is fulfilling a task but you request a revive, the closest clone will take the command, even if he's working on an objective and has next to no health. Still, they get kills effectively, especially when ordered to snipe, to the extent that if even one member of Delta is missing, it's noticeable. However, upon closer inspection, when not utilizing any commands, the squad can be pretty dumb.
Kick him. Kick him. Good jobs.
Now, I'm not one to make excuses, especially for Star Wars, but this game came out 15 years ago, and its AI behavior still trumps some more recent titles, so aside from a few incidents, it didn't seem that bad. On paper, I imagine a squad shooter where the entire squad is clones of the same guy probably doesn't sound like it would have much, well, character, right? Remember, this was before the Clone Wars TV show had given personality and depth to a lot of individual clone troopers. Thankfully, a guy you may have heard of named George Lucas suggested the clones on Delta have more distinct voices and personalities from each other so they could better stand out. And honestly, while I'm normally pretty stiff when it comes to sticking by lore and canon, I think this change was the right call. Each member of Delta having their own voice made commanding them and keeping track of combat much easier and enjoyable. And the personalities of Delta, though super cliche, did add to the overall experience.
Damn, I don't believe it.
What's wrong, Seth?
I lost count of my kills.
As far as the story goes, there's not really much to discuss from a narrative standpoint, so spoilers for the next 10 seconds of this video, I guess. As Delta Squad takes part in the Battle of Geonosis, retaking the hijacked Prosecutor battleship, and recon of the wiki homeworld Kashyyyk, they uncover a secret alliance between the Separatists and the Trandoshans. And that's pretty much it. No significant narrative, just an elite squad on missions that connect to a greater story we already know. And I'd argue that anything more would have felt out of place. See, Republic Commando is one of those games that pulls off player immersion surprisingly well. We see through the eyes of a clone trooper from birth through training, then a few select missions. During the entire game, we never leave 3/8's eyes, with his helmet HUD persisting from the moment he puts it on, making the player feel immersed in the action as the screen cracks from damage and blood or oil splash the visor when we kill something up close. The game's tone is pulled off extremely well too, putting us in the more vulnerable, boots-on-the-ground part of the war, giving the game a bit of a horror vibe at parts. There are no Jedi here, making super battle droids, Geonosians, and other enemies I would have previously seen as non-threatening a lot more dangerous when they can't just be cut down by a lightsaber. In this week's preview, I'd said that I remember two of this game's biggest flaws being its ending and short length. While I definitely still agree with the former, I actually think that the length is just about perfect. Towards the end, the game started to stale a bit just in time for the credits to roll, which brings me to my final thoughts. If I had to briefly explain Star Wars Republic Commando, I'd obviously reference Tom Clancy as well as some Halo influence, but ultimately I'd describe it as a really good VR shooter that unfortunately lacks the headset. Think about it. A really immersive HUD, using alternative means like squad commands to help strengthen where it lacks in shooting mechanics, a story that's more interested in sucking you into the level rather than telling narrative, and a campaign that doesn't drag on past its gimmick. While I can hold on to hope that Republic Commando will get a VR follow-up someday, the question remains, is the current version worth playing today? I feel pretty confident that the answer is yes, but with some conditions. If you like squad-based shooters or Star Wars or both, I definitely recommend it. If neither of those are your thing, there's probably not much for you here, seeing as it's not a great representation of Star Wars as a whole, and there are better gateways into the tactical squad shooter genre that have more updated gameplay. Fortunately, I'm a big fan of both, so I had a great time playing through it again. And if you'd like to experience Republic Commando for yourself, it's available on PC on Steam, as well as on Xbox One through backwards compatibility.
Oh no! Oh no! You know, guys, this clone, he stood his ground. He tried to defend this hallway. You know what? Let's give him a hand.